So it is official. As hard news as it is to shares, is that President Donald Trump over the last several days has now officially announced that he will be firing / mass laying off several thousands and thousands of federal workers. And to make matters even much harder is that the reality is that he also has a lot of plans to continue firing / laying off even more to come. This was confirmed in an email that was sent out to several thousands of federal workers over the last couple of days. If you are a federal worker and maybe by chance you got that email, maybe feel free to share what it was like down below. But the idea is that this is scary, because the reality is that the government, represents one of the nation's largest workforce all out there. In other words, the nation's largest employer is the government. And so if we're seeing the nation's largest employers start to do a lot of these layoffs, this is a very tough situation to be in. And to make matters even worse is that it's also because by working for the government, and I guess this is just a general fact, is that most of us may or may not know is that a lot of times the government version of a particular job often pays less than the private / commercial version of the same exact job. But the reason why people take the government version of a job is for stability. It's because a lot of times the government version of the same exact job, although they pay a lot less, the benefits tend to be a lot better. And on top of that, most of all is that there's believed to be a much better job stability so that people can feel more secure about their jobs. Well, now the story is that in 2025, we are starting to see layoffs even with these jobs that were once believed to be stable. So in today's video, what I really want to talk about is really explaining the story to what's happening right now in our economy with the labor market, the job market, obviously as the title suggests with Trump firing these thousands and thousands of workers. And this is going to be very, very important. We're going to explain why in a little bit, so definitely stay tuned watching, especially by the end of this video, because the idea really is that if you happen to be a federal worker or know someone that's a federal worker, then obviously this is going to apply directly to you. But even if you don't happen to be a federal worker, this is still pretty important, because the reason why is that if many federal workers, and we're going to talk about that in a bit like mentioned, if many federal workers start to lose their jobs, they will be entering into the labor market relatively soon. And if that happens, and from so many videos as we've already seen, if you've been following this channel, maybe consider subscribing if you're new here. We've talked a lot about how in many of these particular jobs, thousands and thousands of people are now currently unemployed looking for brand new work. But if these federal workers lose their jobs as well, it means that now that they will enter into the work search process, it means that there's going to be even more competition for these jobs now, which makes things even worse. So again, if you are a federal worker, this is a very relevant video. But even if you're not a federal worker, if you're looking for a job, or even if you're looking for a promotion, because a lot of times people have to leave their jobs for you to be able to get promoted, this is going to be impactful. But of course, it's all going to make a lot more sense as we watch through this video. So with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell as we get more information. I'm going to put some videos at the end screen that you can watch after you watch this video. And with that being said, let's get started. So the background story to what's happening right now inside of our country and our economy with Trump firing all of these workers, and it's really important, you're going to see why in a little bit, is that back several weeks ago, not even a month ago, but maybe about 2 to 3 weeks ago, as you guys know from a past video that I made, which we talked all about this, President Donald Trump offered a federal buyout program for unemployed or for potentially unemployed workers, where he will essentially pay the potential 2 million federal workers that are inside of our country a massive severance package, specifically that will cover your salary for about 9 months, all the way until September of 2025, for you to essentially leave your job. So in other words, he will be paying you money to leave your jobs. And we're going to talk about the motivation why in a little bit. But the idea is that the conclusion, and I guess the follow-up to that story, is that only about 77,000 people ended up taking that package, which leaves another over 1 million people that just didn't take that package and are now facing their jobs at risk. Now, I did explain a lot about the details about what's actually in this package in another video, which I highly recommend checking out after you watch this video. I'll put it at the end screen so you can watch it. The name of that video, I believe, is literally just called 2 million workers at risk of their jobs, or Trump to lay off, something like that, in that ballpark. But the idea is that right now at this time period, because a lot of workers did not take that package, the risk is that there's a lot of workers right now that are facing a potential job loss. And the worst part is that their severance package, either just they will not be getting a severance package, or they will be getting a severance package, but it won't be as generous as what the package would have been if they took that package, like the other 77,000 workers that did. Now, the motivation behind why he's doing what he's doing right now is for several reasons. The first motivation, as you guys know, is that because he essentially wanted to make sure that the people that are currently working for the government are going to want to actually genuinely support his administration, because many of the federal workers in our country joined the government workforce during the Biden administration, and so obviously they're in support of Biden if they are working for Biden, obviously. But now that we are working under the Trump administration, there may be a lot of workers that do not want to support the Trump administration. And simply put, a lot of those workers, maybe they just don't want to be there. And so as a result, because of that reason, he will essentially pay you through that buyout package that was once, that he proposed about a couple weeks ago, to leave your jobs, thinking that he only wants to have people that genuinely want to be there. And that's really the first motivation behind it. But the second motivation behind why he's doing this is really actually for financial reasons. And it's really because right now at this time, and again, I'm saying this in his views and his quotes, is that he feels that the workforce is just too big inside of our government. And so because of that reason, what he really wants to do is that because he feels that the workforce in our government is so big right now, it's just not being efficient. And because of this lack of efficiency, he thinks that by shrinking the workforce, he can now save money, use that money to just now apply to a lot of other programs and things and agendas and goals that he wants to do. This is even more relevant because, as you guys know, is that one of the biggest things we've talked about on this channel is about how he really wants to implement tariffs. But we talked about in our last episode about why in order to do what he wants to do, it's one of the things that he has in plan is that he wants to essentially potentially remove income taxes, but replace that with foreign tariffs. If he ends up doing that, money has to come from somewhere. And if the money has to come from somewhere, one of the areas that he's hoping to try to save money is through the workforce. And by simply put is that he wants to cut the workforce in order to save money for the government to now use for other goals. Of course, we talked a lot about that in another video that we'll put at the end screen as well, so you can watch it after this video. But if you guys haven't done so, maybe consider subscribing, because we will be making more updates as we get information about that. But those are really the two biggest motivations that he has for why he is trying to do what he is trying to do right now. Now, how is this going to impact us and why should we care? Well, the reason why we should really care about this situation is that first off is that if you happen to be a federal worker, then obviously this is very important because your job is at risk. I know it's not stuff you want to hear. I know it's not very good news to share, but that's really the reality, is that a lot of people that are working for the government right now, their jobs are at risk because of this situation. That's really the first demographic of people that will truly be really impacted. But the other demographic of people that will potentially really be impacted as well is anyone that happens to be unemployed, even if you are not a federal worker. And why is this the case is that because right now at this time, we all know from so many videos that I've made, from so many news articles, from so many media outlets, how horrible the job market currently is inside of our country. It is a struggle for a lot of people to find work, and even more of a struggle if we're talking about finding quality work. So not just trying to get people to work and, regular jobs, but also making sure that the jobs are actually genuinely quality jobs that have have things, that people would typically want from an ideal job. Things such as like work-life balance, better pay, jobs that align with their career goals based off of maybe what they studied in college. So a lot of this stuff is really, really relevant, because if we see an exodus or a massive layoff of over several hundred thousands of workers inside of our country coming into the job market now trying to look for a job. It's just going to lead to even more competition inside of our labor market to find work. And that's really going to be the massive detriment to a lot of these people, is that now the unemployed people who don't even work for the federal government are going to be impacted as well. This is also going to even apply to actual employed people. And why do I say this? Is because there are a lot of people that maybe are employed but are trying to look for the next chapter or the next goal. And one of the goals is to get a promotion of some kind. But if people hold firmly to their jobs because they're so afraid of losing them, then it means that those people, because they're holding so firmly to their jobs, they're not going to want to leave. And if they don't end up leaving, then it means that the position to get that promotion is not going to happen. And if they don't leave their positions, then it means that even employed people are very likely going to stay put at the same exact position, job, and level that they're currently at right now. And this is also going to impact their economy. And this is the last thing that we're really going to talk about before we just conclude this, to just recap everything. But the other big thing that's also going to happen is that because if people start losing their jobs, there's going to be a lot less money flowing around because people have less money to spend. This is going to impact businesses. This is going to impact our economy. It's going to impact productivity. And so from a lot of the stuff that's happening, it's going to have a massive struggle of potentially keeping a very healthy economy from running inside of our country. And that's really the big idea to what's been happening and how this is going to impact so many different parts of our country right now, and why we should really care about what's happening. Now, the jobs report for the previous month did recently also come out, and I want to be able to share some really, really great news. But I know this is not news, but I mean, this is just the truth of what happened objectively. But the jobs report, long story short, is that it was very, very below expectations. They only ended up adding about 143,000 jobs, and they, obviously wanted to add even more. But when you factor in the fact that they only added 143,000 jobs, and we are now seeing over 200,000 federal workers potentially leaving the workforce, whether this is by choice or by being forced to because of the mass layoffs and firing that's happening. This means that we are taking a downturn right now when it comes to looking for work, even more so in our jobs report, as we've noticed and already just explained right now. Many of the jobs that were lost comes from the government, but like specifically different industries within the government. Some of these jobs are related to the military, some are related to social services, social security. We mentioned the military already. So just a lot of different government programs that are now potentially, or government jobs that are potentially being impacted. Of course, what ultimately ends up happening, we just have to follow the news outlets, hope for the best, and we will hopefully see in the next episode or the future episodes of The Kevin Show, and also of course all of the news outlets as we've just mentioned. So with that being said, that's pretty much what I really just wanted to cover in today's video. So if you guys found that insightful, maybe like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you guys can get notified as we get more information and updates. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, try to stay employed, obviously, but we can only do so much, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.